Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this is day 7 of our Hurricane Dorian coverage. Jim Williams, HurricaneCity.com. 8 o'clock, a little bit late getting started here. I'm waiting for the 8 p.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center. It hasn't come in yet. Um, they did an update at 7, and the winds are still 105 moving northeast. And as I stated in the show last night, this is going to be a flooding event for these people. A lot of coastal flooding, and there's been some tornadoes today. I got some video to show you, but the hurricane force winds are remaining offshore. And I've checked all the observations from South Carolina. I didn't check the last hourly observations, but prior to that, I've been checking, and the highest wind gust has been around 70 on land. The buoys offshore have been getting some hurricane force gusts, but even they're not sustained. So I think as this moves northeast and it skirts the coast, the hurricane force winds, the sustained anyway, are probably going to remain offshore. It's going to be close for Wilmington. It's going to be just south of there. They might get that northern eye wall. But here's the question. Is it going to be the intense banding on the northern eye wall, or is it going to be on the southern eye wall? If it's on the southern eye wall, it'll be out over the water. If it's on the north side, then naturally it'd be on shore. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to show you the HurTrack here. The official forecast, is the eye going to officially make landfall? That's the million-dollar question. Obviously it's not going to happen in South Carolina. That we know. But is it good? I don't think it's going to be happening in Wilmington either, because all indications are for it to be an official landfall, it has to be the center of the eye. So I think there's a possibility when it gets up near Morehead City, maybe the Outer Banks, we could see a landfall where the center of the eye, and that would be tomorrow morning early. So it may or may not be a landfall when this is all said and done. So this is the interesting thing about this. And these systems that are paralleling coast, if this hurricane, and I don't mean to minimize this, but if this hurricane were right off the coast of east coast of Florida right now, and it was 30, 40, 50 miles off the coast, I don't think we'd get hurricane force winds on land. There might be some gusts, but when they're paralleling the coast as opposed to coming straight in, it's a whole different animal, completely different animal. And while this is going to be bad for surge flooding, for especially tidal flooding at times of high tide, which are right around 1 a.m., 1 p.m., that's the cycle right now. So 1 o'clock in the morning here, this will be near Wilmington, maybe pulling away from Wilmington, somewhere probably around Wilmington at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of surge flooding happens on the beaches. Again, parallel storm though. It's not the right. The best way to describe this hurricane is like if you're going to punch somebody and somebody pushes you backwards while you're throwing your punch. So your punch isn't going to have the same contact because you're being pushed away. And that's the direction and angle that this hurricane is paralleling the coast is preventing those winds from whipping onshore. And I think all day we've seen mainly north winds coming through through South Carolina. And I said that on the show last night. I expect mainly offshore winds, which would kind of help a little bit with the tidal flooding. And I don't know if it did or not, but I've seen some video of flooding coming out of these areas, but I don't know if that water rushing was heading back out to sea because of the north winds or what direction it was heading. We'll look in the final analysis of all this is when it'll. Well, we don't even have to wait for the final analysis. What you do is you go to local weather service forecast offices. If you go to the National Hurricane Center website and where all the advisories are, you'll see each office listed there. And you go to these offices and you click on observations, and it'll give you all the current weather conditions. And I'm not seeing anything in a sustained hurricane force. I've seen a couple of gusts right on the coast, but nothing to indicate that we're having hurricane conditions on land. So we're going to check that here live while I'm with you and go over all that. The big story seems to be the guy in the car out on the beach sitting on his car Indian style. Like, it's just another attention-getting stupid, social media crackpot guy that had to draw attention to himself by driving out on a beach and sitting on his car. So every story, every hurricane, there's always some crackpot somewhere doing something stupid. I remember when Hurricane Ike was hitting Galveston, in North Texas and the upper Texas coast, and it was a Category 2, almost a Category 3. But we all remember the images that came out of um, the Boulevard Peninsula over there. And when they were doing the coverage, we were covering it, of course, like we always do. And here comes a guy in a bear suit. You know, he's walking down the beach in his bear suit, and he's following the reporter. And the reporter's trying to do a serious story, like, if you look over there, you can see the waves, and here comes the bear. And the bear keeps following him, and he keeps trying to get the cameraman to get off the bear and start focusing on the waves. And it was hysterical. But there's always stories like this, crazy people doing crazy things. By the way, has anybody heard from the Walking Man? Is that the Dark Man, Walking Man? There's some kind of a legend in South Carolina where when a hurricane is coming, there's this thing called the Walking Man. I think it is the Walking Man. It's an old Civil War veteran that warned people of a hurricane coming back in the day, and he died or something like that. And I don't really know the story. I'm just talking out my ass right now. I mean, I don't know the details, but something about this guy, right? He comes back and people see him walking on the beach in the Civil War costume, and that's a sign that a hurricane is coming, right? So apparently this Walking Man or whatever is supposed to be, I don't know. Has anybody seen the guy? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's only for direct hits. I don't know. Or big majors or something. I don't know. But anyway, let's check the Hurricane Center and let's look at the hurricane track animation and the wind fields and kind of figure out what's going to happen here over the next few hours. Okay, here's the 8 p.m. I'll screen capture it and we'll read it together here. I'm not going to read the entire thing because it just takes too long and it's not good for archive purposes. Okay, let's go ahead and here is the advisory 8 p.m. on Dorian from the National Hurricane Center. We have system is 30 miles south of Cape Fear, North Carolina. So that's that little tip point that sticks out. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's stop this and let me show you the radar real quick, and then we'll go back to the advisory. Okay, here's our current radar position, and this is as of, oh, wait, I got to refresh this. This is old. Oh, no, there it is, 804. It's current. Okay, there, yeah, so there is Cape Fear, that little point sticking out there, and the red bands right around the eye wall are the winds that are sustained at hurricane force. So, yeah, let's go ahead and I'm going to show you because we'll go look at the recon again just to make sure that we're looking at what we're looking at. But right in here, immediately around the eye wall, are the eye wall winds that are sustained at hurricane force. These winds up in here, right here, those are tropical storm force. It's only the immediate bands right around the eye. You can see that they're spinning a little bit faster than these bands out in here are. So those are the hurricane force winds. So the question is that going to get up into here as it passes in this direction? Now, if it moves more like this, then yeah, those winds are going to get on shore. So let's see what happens here throughout the course of the show. We're going to check some of the buoys and the data out there and see if these winds are going to make it on shore. Still think the worst of this is going to be when this gets up towards the Morehead City and the Outer Banks area. That's when we can see the greatest chances for hurricane force winds on shore. All right, so let's go back to that advisory. And again, 30 miles south of Cape Fear, North Carolina, 60 miles south of Wilmington, North Carolina. Maximum sustained winds 100 miles per hour, moving northeast at 10. So let's pick it up forward speed a little bit. Pressure 964 millibars, 28.47 inches. Okay, the hurricane warning from Edisto Beach, South Carolina to South Santee River has been changed to a tropical storm warning as the hurricane pulls away. South of Edisto Beach, discontinued. Hurricane warning. I'm just going to read certain parts of this. The storm surge warning from Cape Fear to Puckeson, Virginia, Pamlico and Albemarle Sounds, Neuse and Pamlico Rivers, Hampton Roads. Hurricane warning is in effect for South Santee River to North Carolina, Virginia border. Pamlico and Albemarle Sounds. Tropical storm warning is in effect for North Carolina, Virginia border to Fenwick Island, Delaware. Let's see, anything else in here? What I like to look at in these advisories is if there's any current observations going on, because that's kind of tells you what's really happening here. Let's see, northeast of 10. Center should move to the southeast of extreme southeastern New England on Friday night and Saturday morning and approach Nova Scotia later Saturday or Saturday night. Reports from the Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate the maximum winds are now 100 miles per hour with higher gusts. Slow weakening is expected during the next few days. However, Dorian is expected to remain a powerful hurricane as the center moves near the coast of South and North Carolina. Hurricane force winds extend out 60 miles from the center. Okay, let's see. Okay, let me do this. Let me just go back to that radar and see what the distance is from where it's currently located right now. So let's pause it right there. By the way, the eye looks like it's getting a little stretched out here, but let's measure from the center of the hurricane to Cape Fear is about 30 miles. That's exactly what they said. Yep, that was dead on. And then, of course, to Wilmington, it's about 60 miles. Yep, it's about 60 miles to Wilmington. Okay, that's pretty good. Pretty good. So the tip of the island is about 30 miles away from the center of the eye, and that's what they use. All right, so let's do this. Let's run the HUR track based on the 5 p.m. advisory. And let's go ahead and animate forecast. And here we go. Moves over the Outer Banks and then out to sea. Well, not out to sea, but heading toward the Canadian Maritimes. So let's go ahead. Let's go back. Let's go to our current position right now. Okay, so they have it at 32 miles, 28 miles. The closest approach is 28 miles, and that is at 11 p.m. tonight. I think it's going to be a little faster, a little further along than this at this point. But generally, the donut, when I show you these images from the HUR track, the bright red donut that's about an inch thick are the hurricane force winds. The skinny red line would indicate hurricane force gust up to hurricane force. Hurricane force gusty winds. In other words, not necessarily like if they're saying it's 100, the 100-mile-an-hour winds are primarily confined to the donut. The winds are 75 miles an hour or higher are inside the red circle. Inside the aqua circle are winds up to, mainly tropical storm force winds up to hurricane force. And then the yellow circle would indicate tropical storm force gusts, not necessarily sustained. So that's what these circles mean as it moves forward here. But keep in mind, we have to have the center of the eye get on shore for it to be an official landfall. So let's go forward in motion here. And again, this doesn't take into consideration the 8 p.m. advisory. It only goes off of extrapolates to 5 p.m. advisory. So according to this, it's 12 miles from Morehead City, but that's not Cape Fear. So it looks like the center of the eye would be directly over Cape Fear at this point, and this would be at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. So when I get up in the morning, it's going to be interesting to see if the eye is directly over this point of Cape Fear. Is it directly overhead, and will it be considered a hit at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning? That'll be the question. And then the other question is going to be, are the hurricane force winds making it onshore, because there have been many cases where an eye has hit and nobody got hurricane force winds. I've seen it plenty of times. I've seen it with Hurricane Katrina in Broward County. I saw it with Hurricane Debbie back in 2000. There's probably been others, and I'm just not drawing my mind real quick, but there's been a bunch of glancing blow hurricanes for the Outer Banks where I'm sure that the center touched, but they didn't get hurricane force winds on land. So it'll be interesting to see if this still happens, or if it even makes landfall at all. But even if it doesn't make landfall in Cape Fear, there's a chance, as we go to the next positions over here, that Cape Hatteras could get the center of it, passing directly overhead. So there's two shots at a eye landfall on eastern North Carolina. It's either Cape Hatteras or Cape Fear. That would be, the Cape Hatteras would be around 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And again, at this time, it'd probably be a Category 1. I'm assuming it'd probably be even a Category 1 by the 5 a.m. advisory, the way that it's deteriorating here. But it's hanging on. There's a little burst of convection on the north side. So it'll be interesting. And I don't even know if they have any weather observations out on Cape Fear. But let's go to the weather observations map I have, the data and buoy map. And we'll see if they have any information on those observations out there, what the current winds are. So let's go ahead and get out of this herd track, because I don't want to have anything disrupting what I'm going to show you. By the way, there's the tropical. Oh, I didn't have it captured. Never mind. By the way, it's going to be a short show tonight. Normally we do a traditional hurricane warning show, which is recording all the interesting events as AI comes on shore, but this is going to be, it's just a tough one. You know, it's, when I do these shows, and I decided after last hurricane season, like if I do any more shows, because I just got demoralized. I mean, the funding wasn't there. The support wasn't there. I'm getting, flack from the people at the Weather Service, from the National Hurricanes, and on and on. It's just, it's too much. So I kind of decided to cut back on a lot of stuff, in case you haven't noticed. And so I decided if I'm going to do any coverage in the future, meaning, this year, it would be for significant strikes. And had it not been for Dorian hitting the Bahamas, or the threat of a Category 5 heading towards land, I probably wouldn't have done any coverage on this hurricane. But because it was heading toward the Bahamas, this was this is the most powerful hurricane to ever hit the Bahamas, and only the second to ever hit land in the Atlantic Basin. So you had to give it coverage. I mean, this was just a huge hurricane, a huge story. The Bahamas, it's going to take them years to recover, but had it just missed the Bahamas, let's just say it was missing the Bahamas and it was going to do the recurvature like we see so many times with the Outer Banks, right? Outer Banks gets hit by so many hurricanes. In fact, they get hit by an eye wall of a hurricane once every 6 years on average. By a named storm every other year. That's how frequently the Outer Banks get hit by these systems. So hurricanes every 6 years, they get hit by majors about once every 12. I heard somebody came out and say, they hardly ever get hit by majors. There's been a plethora of major hurricanes go through the eastern North Carolina area. They've had a lot of majors go through there. Going back to 1871, there's been 20, 12 or so, I don't know, something like some amount, but it's about once every 12 years a major goes through there. So it's not like unprecedented or anything, but if this had done the typical recurvature that we see a lot in the southeastern United States, I probably wouldn't have covered it at all. Probably would not have covered it at all. So I'm not really going to cover this happening here in North Carolina tonight. We'll let the data speak for itself. We'll know the extent of the damage tomorrow. We've had some tornadoes. We know this, that happens all the time in hurricanes. Right front quadrant, you're going to get tornadoes in there. It happens all the time. So I'm not unexpected. Feel bad for the people that had their houses mangled. A lot of roofs took a hit. I'll show you the video of that coming up. But it's almost like, and I don't mean to feel like it's not a big deal for the Carolinas, but when you compare to what just happened in the Bahamas, it's kind of like, I don't want to say anything offensive here, so I'm not going to go down that road. But it's kind of like, I guess it's like watching a bad car accident, and the tire flew off the car, and the tire is continuing down the road, and it's going to smash into another car at the end of the block. And that's kind of like, but you're focused on the main accident that just happened, where there's a whole bunch of cars and dead people at the intersection, and the tire is still rolling down the road. That's kind of what I feel like this hurricane is. It's the proverbial tire rolling down the road and heading out to sea, and just doing a glancing blow show along the way. So I'm not going to put extensive amount of time into this. But let's show you some observations. Let's go to the Weather Service offices and see what they're saying about what's happening right now. And tomorrow morning, we'll go revisit. I'll revisit it anyway, the Weather Service offices, and see exactly what happened. We'll go and analyze this, and see if it really was a hurricane strike, even though technically it would be with the center of the eye over land. But how much hurricane force winds do we get on land? Because that's the damaging winds that, they've had damaging winds. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to minimize tropical storm force winds, but 60 to 70 versus 180 down in the Bahamas is day and night. I mean, it just is. I know I'm stating the obvious here, but it just is what it is. So let's go ahead and start looking at some observations here. Again, take a look at our radar one more time so that we can, just for comparison purposes, and again, the reds are starting to wind down here a little bit on the north side. They were flaring up, but now they're winding down, so that's good news. So you're not going to get the real high winds coming in there, but we'll see if some of these reds, it looks like they are touching Cape Fear right now, but the question is, are there any recording stations out there? So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to have to open another browser. So bear with me just 1 minute. Actually, we need that because I'm going to have to, use those Weather Service offices. So I'm going to leave that browser open. And I'm going to go to, all right, so let's do this together. So in case somebody's new coming into the broadcast here, I can tell you how to look at these observations. So let's go to, all right, we're at the front page of Hurricane City. It's now the database, not the tracking map. I used to feature the city that could be highest impacted by a system as it's on the move. Not doing that anymore. So it's the database is the front page. If you want to track the hurricane, you can still do that with our best performing models and the GIS maps and everything. Use the drop-down menu under Products and go to Hurricane Tracking. So we click on Hurricane Tracking. Here comes the old front page. It pops up with the map on it. And I built this map, by the way, the GIS map. I put the grids on it myself. Put all the layers on it. It takes layers to build these maps. I built the layers in for the populations. I didn't build the layers. What I did is took the layers that are available out there and built them into the map is what I did. So there's population layers. There's the cone of errors from the National Hurricane Center. Those are National Hurricane Center shape files. Those are not my own personal feelings or anything like that. Those are official cones of error and past histories of the systems as they've been on the move. And the best performing model data that comes into the best track data at the National Hurricane Center. And we run these multiple times a day and calculate the best performers on the map. And those are all things that are added to this map. So just want to let you, and then the more you zoom in, the more data that becomes available on the map. It's really cool. You can get population centers. See the more we tune in, the more we zoom in here, the more it becomes available. So you can click on, like for example, these shaded areas, and you can get like the population, how many housing units are there, what the population is, and all these little small towns along the coast. Like right near Cape Fear. I'm sorry, Cape Fear is down here. No, that's, Cape Fear is down here. So let's take a look at Cape Fear, look at the population. Hatteras Village, not Hatteras Village. The village here is 1,111 people, housing units rather. 1,100, around 1,100 housing units, 163 people live in this little sliver of land where that eye wall is just beginning to touch. And so let's take a look at some of the best performing models. You know, these are calculated every 24 hours. Chris and I have debated about whether to go every 5 days or every 24 hours. The problem with 5 days is if you wait 5 days to calculate the models to figure out which ones are performing the best, you have to wait 5 days to display them. So it would obviously make no sense. So we have to do 24-hour increments, and it's recalculated. And the problem is the euro, because the European model comes in only twice a day. The GFS comes in 4 times a day. So when and also when there's an invest out there, the euro doesn't issue any positions, right? Because the euro is only going to give you the positions when there's an organized system out there. So the European data is not even available until you have a named storm. So we're going based on 4 times a day, calculating, and then it displays the 5 best performers over the past 24 hours, and that's what we're looking at right now. And the reason it says official is because it does include the official forecast, which is also a grade. Believe it or not, at the end of the season, the National Hurricane Center will grade themselves compared to the models on every single system. So we include the National Hurricane Center in there, and they're the best over the past 24 hours on the position that they think it's going to be at a certain time. So that's the best performer as the Hurricane Center official. Zoom in even further because their lights are so close together. Models are kind of tightly cut. OFCL, of course. Let's see. Well, it's basically a blend of the official information that's been given out, so there's no point in really going over this. So let's go ahead. I want to show you where to get to these observations. By the way, there's the eye showing up on the satellite right underneath the models, which is pretty cool. It's the satellites embedded in with it as well. So let's take a look at the ships and buoy data out here. And I added this map and added the layers to this as well with our own current observations, which are the green pins that are all over the map. So the more you scroll it in here, all the observations show up and the buoys. And you'd like to hope that there's no ships anywhere near this thing, which is a good thing. All right, so here's a buoy right in the middle of this thing. So we have winds south-southeast at 35 knots, gusting to 50. So that's basically tropical storm force winds. Pressure 28, 38, and falling rapidly. So it's in the eye wall right now. I mean, the right front quadrant, you saw it. That's the right front quadrant winds right there. That buoy is reading tropical storm force. Now here we go out into Cape Fear. Buoy that's right off of Cape Fear. We have wave heights 14 feet. Water temperature 81. It's not giving me the winds though, unfortunately. Let's put this figures. All these observations right around here are not reporting. Here's one near the South Carolina, North Carolina border. 29.2 knots out of the north, gusting to 50 knots. Pressure 2911. Water temperature 80.8. Let's go over here to Myrtle Beach. No, that's not reporting. Let's go up in here. Wilmington, not reporting. Oh, brother. Okay, but I have a backup plan. Don't worry. Even though we're not getting these reports, we'll still go to the Weather Service office for last hour roundup to kind of see if there's anything close to the hurricane force winds on land. 33 knots, gusting to 50 knots is up near off the coast of Wilmington, on the buoy off the coast of Wilmington. Here we have near a little bit onshore here we have northeast winds at 39, gusting to 46, pressure 29.27. And we have a buoy southeast of Wilmington right now, southeast winds at 36, gusting to 50. And we have southeast winds southeast at 31, gusting to 44 on another buoy northeast of the center. So this is the only available data from the buoys right around the system. But this one tells a telling story right here because this is in the eye wall. Southeast at 35, gusting to 50. So let's go ahead and take a look at the hurricane hunters. So let's go see what they're finding. So we're going to go into the Lockheed WC-130 Hercules aircraft, which is leaving the storm. Okay. Let's go look at some recent observations from it. Now that was when it was back. Wait. Missions. Please tell me they're not going to have a plane in here when it's near Cape Fear. You got to be kidding me. Maybe this one is heading in. That one's heading in. So there's nothing flying there right now. All right. The NOAA 2, let me see if they're still in there. I doubt it. No, they're, wait a minute. Yeah, the NOAA 2 aircraft is in there right now. Okay. So no, that's old too. Wait a minute. Okay, no, because there's two swirls on here. So they're measuring currently right now. They're there right now. So let's look at these winds on the east side. Surface peak wind 65 knots. That's right at category 1, 74.8 miles an hour. And that's right about where that buoy is, believe it or not. So I don't know why there's a discrepancy. I don't know. You know what? I've always found there's a difference between these SFMR winds and buoy data anyways. Not surprising. And it could be a difference of one streak, one little tiny thunderstorm could be maybe a half a mile wide, and it's under, the hurricane hunters are measuring it, but the buoy is not. It's as simple as that. Surface wind 58 knots, that's 67 miles an hour, which is the buoy which is the data right next to the last measurement they took. So, I mean, the difference between one barb and the next could be a difference of 10 miles an hour. Again, surface wind 63 miles an hour. Let's get a little closer to the center, 76 miles an hour. Now let's go northeast of the center. Let's go right up against the eye wall. And we have 77 miles an hour. We extend a little bit out from the eye wall, like say 10 miles. We're talking 73 miles an hour, right at hurricane force, 73, 74 miles an hour. Now we go about 20 miles out, and we've got peak, they're only giving flight level wind on that one, not surface. Here we go, FSFMR peak surface wind, 60 miles an hour. And up near Cape Fear, we have 62 miles an hour. So that's what's basically moving by Cape Fear right now, about 65 mile an hour winds. According to those SFMR readings from the NOAA aircraft, we're getting winds about just under hurricane force. That's hitting that little Cape Fear area right now with these east-southeast winds. Again, 60 miles an hour, 59.8. Now let's go on the backside and see what's happening over here. Surface wind 80 miles an hour on the backside. And again, this is typical of these hurricanes that are paralleling the coast. The highest winds remain south and east of the center because the land friction kind of takes away from it, as well as the fact that it's moving against itself. Like when they're moving northeast, racing like that, like I was giving you the description of throwing a punch. I think that's the best description I can give in this case. Again, 79 miles an hour on the southwest quad, on the west side of this. 76 miles an hour again. And when you go out here southeast of the center, again, these were from 22, it's 18. This was from like 7:45. This is like an hour old. Some of these observations, 99. I'm sorry, peak surface wind 76. Here's another surface wind 72. Surface wind 72.5. Okay, it's reloading. All right, here we go. Here's one that's really good. This is right south of Cape Fear. So let's click on this, and this will have a lot more. This is from a drop zone. This is actual drop zone information. Okay, so here we go. Surface winds 63 knots, 72 miles an hour. That is just south of Cape Fear, close to the eye wall. That is like eye wall. You know, they drop the drop zone into the eye wall to kind of measure what's happening. And as you go higher, the winds increase. So let me read as they go up in 962 millibars is 76 miles an hour. So just hold on 1 minute. Where the heck is my phone? What did I do with my phone? Let me do this. Okay, it's going to be paused for a minute. Just bear with me here. Okay, so let's go. Let me see something. Um, this isn't telling me. You know what? Forget it. I was going to try to, because what they do on these drop zones, and I don't have this information memorized by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I have a chart here in front of me that can tell me the millibar heights. Like for example, 950 millibars is 1,500 feet off the ground. So you know when you look at some of these observations. Oh, I didn't mean to stop that. Sorry. Hold on. Okay, computer's starting to give me fits here. All right, so the surface is 966 millibars. We have 72 miles an hour. 962 millibars is 66 knots, which is 76 miles an hour. So when you get up to so I'm assuming, I can only assume we're talking about a few hundred feet off the ground here is where the hurricane force winds are. This is what I'm trying to drive at. The hurricane force winds are probably a couple of hundred feet off the ground. And this is why when they tell you if you live in these high-rise condos and stuff, you're going to feel maybe sometimes winds much stronger or one category higher because the wind is higher with height. And so the surface winds are below hurricane strength according to the drop zone data from the NOAA aircraft of that eye wall that's just south of Cape Fear. And then as you go up, the winds increase. Like they're 92 miles an hour at 950. So when you get up around 1,500 feet up into the atmosphere, the winds are like 92 miles an hour. And they peak out at 99 miles an hour at 925 millibars, which is like, I don't know, 2,500 feet or something. Again, I don't have a chart in front of me. And then strangely, interestingly, the winds go down as you go even higher up. When you get up to, let's see, 850 millibars, the winds are 80 miles an hour, and 850 millibars is like 5,000 feet up in the air. So you know, uh, that's basically it. That those winds that they're measuring. So let's go over here. Let's take a look at another drop zone they put on the ground, and this is from 19, well, 7:45. Yeah, 7:45 p.m. Eastern time, about an hour old. We had winds on the surface at, and this is right off the coast of North Carolina. It's 36 knots, 41 miles an hour. And then, of course, you go up in height, and uh, the winds stay consistent further north of the center. But nothing hurricane force until you get upwards of, there is nothing hurricane force over here. Even no matter how high you go, there's no hurricane force winds right there where that one buoy is, right where my mouse pointer, that's not a buoy, the drop zone rather, right off the coast of North Carolina. But again, that was about an hour ago, and these things ebb and flow, but basically, again, right off Cape Fear, we're looking at 60-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, that's basically, if there was an anemometer right on the tip of Cape Fear, they'd probably be measuring gusts to 60 miles an hour. Because the sustained winds, those are peak surface 10-second winds. Those aren't like over a 1-minute period or anything like that. That's a 10-second wind gust. So, let's see. All right, so that basically gives you the rundown of what the winds are. The strongest winds appear to be on the west side of the circulation, which makes sense because when you look at the radar, the most intense bands are on the west side, and really the banding on the east side is kind of weak. So the right front hook is rather weak. I'm the guy who's throwing the right punch right now, and that hurricane has got a broken arm right now. There's no muscle in it. Now, that might shift over to the right, but it's highly unlikely when these things start racing off to the northeast. Usually, the thunderstorms lag on the back side of it more than on the front side of it. So, again, that was one of my concerns going into tonight as to how much of that wind was going to make it on shore. Again, on the east side, eye wall, we're looking at surface wind 73.6. That's right at hurricane force, 76 miles an hour. There's a 78-mile-an-hour wind right up against the eye wall of the eye on the east side. But the higher winds are on the west side, and then when you go southeast, 69 miles an hour. So that's what's heading towards land, and that's the whole thing is just basically shifting off to the northeast. So, and the system is weakening at the same time. So this is what I was trying to say. But let's go ahead and take a look at the Weather Service offices and see what they're saying. So let's go to Wilmington right now and see if there's any recent observations. Again, they'll give a post-analysis when the hurricane is over. They'll tell you what the winds actually were and what the tidal flooding was and what the rainfall was. You'll get a full rundown of what actually happened. So let's go under current conditions and then use list. And so let's take a look at the wind gusts here. Let's see if we got, and this is in knots, by the way. Or is it in miles per hour? Wait a minute. Yeah, these are in knots. So we're talking 48. That's 55-mile-an-hour winds at Myrtle Beach. We had a gust of 52 knots, which is about 62 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour-ish in Myrtle Beach. And again, those winds were mainly out of the north when that was happening. Now we go down to North Carolina. We have, let's see, 30, 40. There's a gust of around 50 in Georgetown. Rest of North Carolina. And when was this, by the way? This is from 8 p.m. Yeah, okay, so this is the last hour. Let's see. Got gust of 45 in Fayetteville. That's 50 miles an hour. And the rest of South Carolina, it's starting to wind down. The gusts are only going up to about 30 miles an hour right now, 35, 40. Charleston just had a gust of 42 42, 43 miles an hour. And let's see what else. Offshore. Johnny Mercer Pier, we have gust of 49 knots. Here we get on the offshore buoys, we've got 39 knots. Here's a 60 knot frying pan shoals. 60 knots at 70 miles an hour. Edisto, South Carolina, buoy out there had 61 miles an hour. So again, nothing close to hurricane force as of this hour from North Carolina or South Carolina over the past, I went and looked back all the hours as this was passing by South Carolina. I didn't find any hurricane force winds except on the buoys, but nothing on shore. So now tornadoes. Yes, tornadoes will spin up. Some of these little tornadoes, these F0s, F1s, you can get winds, 150 miles an hour. So they will do some damage. Now I'm going to show you some video here. So let's go ahead and do that since we're not able to find any hurricane force winds. Let me go ahead and share this video of a look from a guy that had a drone and he was flying up in this neighborhood on, well, here, I'll just show it to you. There's no sound on this, so. This is from WECT television. There it is. Okay. Doesn't want to play for some reason. Come on. There it is. If this doesn't start playing, there it goes. Again, roof damage. So what looks like the tornado might have come down the street is what it looks like to me and hit the corner of those roofs, like the whole front yards probably got mangled as the tornado went right down that street. So it looked like a very skinny, narrow tornado because if you look at the houses across the street, there's no damage at all. So it must have just went right down the street and took out the front of those gable ends on those roofs. And then notice the houses next to it. There's a few shingles missing, so they must have had winds probably about 70 miles an hour that took shingles off some of these roofs. Maybe 80 miles an hour, but aluminum laying around, some screen enclosures mangled. That house got hit pretty decent right there. Looks like some of the fascia came off the house. I don't know what was in these backyards. Obviously, fences are all knocked down. Not sure if they had actual, any kind of playgrounds out there or, pretty cool though. Having a drone in the aftermath is a pretty cool thing because you can really get up there and analyze the situation. And the wind still had to be blowing pretty decent, probably 20, 30 miles an hour, which, that's kind of the threshold when you don't want to get a drone up there. That person's already they already got a tarp on the roof? I don't think so. But notice the houses across the street, no damage at all. Like this thing just, aluminum siding on the houses. It blew the siding off the houses. Again, it must have hopped over this house and then hit that other side of the house. I mean, it's amazing the way these tornadoes work. Like it just bounced right over that house and then hit the other side of the house. Now, these people are going to have a miserable time here over the next several weeks, going into the next several months, because they got to get a tarp cover the roof. Is the house livable? Is when it rains, is the water pouring in there? They're going to have to get somebody to cover that roof. Is the electrical mangled? How much damage did it do to the air conditioning system in the house? It looks like all those air vents, the, the the airflow throughout the house may have been mangled. Insulation, you can live without it, but you still have to cover your roof. How many windows were broken? That's another thing we don't really know based on this footage we're seeing here. But this could be repeated a few more times in the Outer Banks and in the Wilmington area here coming up tonight, and in the that's what I would be doing. If I lived in Wilmington, I'd be really worried about tornadoes tonight. I'd be paying close attention to no weather radio, or just have your local news on all night. And even if you're even able to sleep, a lot of people when hurricanes are coming, they're not even able to sleep. So if you have your TV or your radio on all night tonight, they'll tell you if there's a tornado warning for your neighborhood. And then if there is, run to your bathroom, take cover, because these things will hit fast and they'll leave fast. And this is what it'll do. So you want to make sure and it may be a good idea for the whole family to sleep like in one room together, in the living room maybe, and so that when this warning comes out, you don't have to go room to room rounding everybody up. You can say, okay, everybody in the bathroom real quick. This is going to happen so fast. And so you really have to be alert for that. Again, I mean, I don't even see the windows broken on some of these houses, and I'm wondering, yeah, I mean, I don't see, it looks like there's a hole there. Maybe. Garage door's intact. Okay, that's basically it. So that's one video I wanted to show you. I got some other videos to show you. So let me go to my Twitter feed. Follow me at Hurricane City. It should be on your screen, at the bottom of the screen there. But go to my Twitter feed, and this may or may not be in the archive on Hurricane Dorian when I'm done editing it all. And by the way, if you haven't looked at my Twitter feed, there's a video I have, or you can find it on my Facebook page, that I edited down. It's from the Bahamas Radio Network. And speaking of which, I forgot to say this. The Bahamas, the local radio stations, I can pick them up on in my truck radio. And there's two stations I can pick up. The Bahamas radio can't pick up either one of them. So those antennas must have got flung off the buildings. I don't know if they're still streaming online. I haven't really checked. But I have to assume the radio stations are down for the count. The TV stations, like everything is down for the count over there. But what I'm surprised about, though, is some of these stations are based in Bimini, and some are based in Nassau. And in Nassau, and by the way, if anybody's listening tonight from the Bahamas, which I doubt that, but does anybody know, maybe? Does anybody know if there were sustained, well, I don't even need to know about sustained. Just let me know, were there tropical storm force winds in Nassau? Because I need to know whether that should be included in the database as a brush or a hit from Hurricane Dorian. I'm going to ask Wayne Neely, because he works for the Weather Service in the Bahamas. I'm going to ask him on his Facebook page, but he's probably got so many things going on. He's not going to have time to look into that. But if anybody knows whether, just give me a simple yes or no. Email me, jim@hurricanecity.com, or you can simply post on my Facebook or Twitter or whatever. Just let me know, yes or no, were there tropical storm force winds in Nassau? Just let me know. I'd love it if you could pass that information along. So let's go to the Twitter page, and I want to start at the bottom because I uploaded several videos or retweeted several things today. And okay, here's the ground view of a lot of those houses. This is actually a mobile home park that got hit, so let's watch this. All right. I don't know why it keeps buffering. Come on. Could not be, wait a minute, what's going on here? Okay, that's the end of the video. Okay, let me show you some more stuff here. That was mobile home park. Here's the tornado from early this morning. This was Pender County in North Carolina, near Highway 17 and Sidbury Road. So let's take a look at this one.
They're on up 6.
East side ops to west side ops.
Okay, so that was a tornado in North Carolina this morning. Here was a tornado near Myrtle Beach. This was posted by Ed Petrowski, so let's take a look at this. That's pretty well formed.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's a holy crapper there.
Definitely saw debris flying around in this. I don't know if it's touched all the way down to the ground, but
Okay. I just want to get some comments here real quick. Bob Seitz and Randy Watson watching. The Gray Man, that's it. Donna Mullen pointed that out. Thank you very much, Donna. It's the Gray Man that walks in South Carolina whenever the hurricane is coming and warns people, or at least just by walking down the beach, I guess he's warning people. I don't really know how that works exactly. Bobby Coleman, hi Jim, great to see you up. You're welcome. Margie Garland, she's up in Nova Scotia preparing. Yeah, I would be prepared for Cat 1, Margie, definitely. It's going to be pretty ferocious in Nova Scotia. I think this thing's going to pass right over Nova Scotia and give you some good winds. Nancy's watching. Nancy Gibson, hey, Jim, what have the rain weights been, especially inland? I got to look that up. I'm sorry. I'm so obsessed with wind, I've completely forgot about the rain. Sorry about that. Donald Easter, hey, Jim. All right, so let's go look up rain. I'm going to write that down so I won't forget. Look up rain while I'm live. So let's, okay, let's go to the next video. This is some really wild flooding going on, and this is from South Carolina. So let's watch this. Oh, crap. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. That was pretty phenomenal. Okay, so here's what I want to show you. There's been a lot of chatter online about the guys the storm chasers over there in the Bahamas. So here's what Jim Eds posted today. And that was his pressure. There's his arm with his watch. Maybe I should get one of those watches. Pretty cool. 911.2 millibars. That's dead center, man. That's exactly what the official observation was from the National Hurricane Center. So he had to have been dead center in that eye to get that kind of a reading. And there's the eye in his shot. I mean, that's incredible. Look at how perfectly shaped it is. For those of you who may have seen me live in Hurricane Michael, I wasn't in the dead center of the eye. I was on the edge of the eye, but when I was facing south or facing east, and the eye wall was coming towards me, and the eye wall that had already passed me was moving away from me. It was kind of ragged, but this is really sharp. I mean, look at that perfectly circular stadium effect. That's just incredible. Absolutely incredible eye shot there. Wow. Okay, here's the jackass on his car. Let's go ahead and show it. I have no idea what that guy's doing. Like, he's sitting like maybe he's Hindu or something, and he's doing some sort of a prayer or something, or he's on some major psychedelic drug or something. Like, what the hell are you doing there? Driving, it's just human behavior, man. I'm telling you, we need more mental institutions, no question. It's ridiculous. This post is rather interesting from Phil Klotzbach. Hurricane Dorian's been a hurricane for 8 days. About 10% of the Atlantic hurricanes in the satellite era since 1966 have lasted longer than 8 days. The record is a whopping 19.5 days by Hurricane Ginger in 1971. So I remember they asked my local WPTV weatherman today, she did a no-no. One of the co-hosts of the news said to the weatherman, "So, what's the longest lasting hurricane in history? Because it's been a long hurricane." And he's like, and then he tries to pick out Irma, which may be in the top 10, but it's definitely not the longest lasting hurricane on record. But he really didn't know the answer, so he just threw Irma out there. But now we know it's Ginger from 19. I gotta admit, I wouldn't know that either. If somebody came up to me and said, "Hey Jim, what's the longest lasting hurricane?" I'd say, I don't know. Go look it up, Google it or something. I have no idea. But I don't keep track of things like this. Like I'm more into if a certain area was hit, what happened. Like I can go back and you can tell me any city. Like if somebody comes up to me and says they're from I don't know, New Orleans. Like I can pretty much rifle out the hurricane history in New Orleans. I can, if you're in Brownsville, I can give you the kind of the history of those hurricanes. Anywhere on the Texas coast, Florida, the Panhandle, anywhere, I can kind of give a history of it. Not exact storm by storm by storm, but there's a lot up in the head here that I've memorized over the years about all these hurricanes. But that's one thing I would not know is what's the longest. Of course, I know it now, but am I going to forget it next week? Possibly. But that's what Phil Klotzbach's good for. Stuff like the ACE, like keeping track of the cumulative cyclone energy in the Atlantic Basin. Like I just could care less about that. I mean, it's cool that he knows these things, but to me, all that matters is where they're going. That's all that matters to me. Where are the hurricanes going and what are they going to do when they get there? I could care less about the energy out in the ocean. I could care less about fish storms. I could care less about an invest coming off of Africa. Now, for all indications are the current invest coming off Africa, some models want to develop it, some don't, some take it north, some take it west. We'll just have to watch it. I mean, to sit there and split hairs over invest to me is just, wasting time. But anyway, I thought that was rather interesting by Phil Klotzbach. And then there we are. Okay, so I'm going to get out of here. Let's go back to the Weather Service offices, which, by the way, you can get there from the tracking page by clicking right above the tracking map. See where my mouse pointer is? Right here, where there's the model list. And then right underneath where it says model list, just click on NHC. It takes you to the front page. And there's all your Weather Service offices. So let's take a look at Charleston, because that's where it's already been. And I want to see what kind of rainfall they had today. So let's look at, okay, it just refreshed. Hold on. Rivers and lakes. Okay, let's look at current conditions, observations, tide levels, rainfall. Okay. Yeah, this is the total amount of rainfall we've had so far on the system. Looks like Savannah areas had 2 inches of rain. Gosh, this is hard to read. Looks like Charleston's had like, I don't know, 3 inches maybe? 2.5, 3 inches? No, wait a minute. It depends on where that's just where the word. Okay, Charleston looks like it's been around 6 inches, 5 to 6 inches. Mount Pleasant has had about 6 to 8 inches. Get further up the coast. Looks like right along the coast it's been mainly 2 to 4 inches right along the coast. And so far in Wilmington area, we're looking at about 2 inches so far, but that rain's coming down pretty good, so I think it's going to be piling up here. But it looks like the heaviest rains have been offshore, obviously, because the hurricane is offshore. But I mean, I don't know how accurate this is, though. Let me see if there's a list. It's hard to look at these maps with any. You know what I can do? I got a more accurate map. Let me show you mine. It's the, well, it's not mine. It's the weather tap. Radar archive of rain. Let me pull this up. And radar. Radar home. Okay, let's go to North Carolina. No, let's go, yeah, South Carolina. Okay, let's go to, okay, this will give us storm precipitation totals. Yeah, a little better, but still kind of mangled here. Let me show you what I'm looking at. Okay, there is the radar storm precipitation totals. Again, Myrtle Beach, 5, 6 inches maybe. Wilmington, just north of Wilmington here, we've had 8 to 10 inches already, just north of Wilmington. Down near Cape Fear, we're looking at 4 inches so far. And then we have another stretch over here for up like maybe Topsail Beach area maybe. We've got 5, 6 inches of rain. Not that much over here because it hasn't gotten over there yet, but that's basically a roundup of the rain. I mean, 5, 6 inches in Myrtle Beach, maybe some isolated higher amounts. Looks like north of Myrtle Beach, maybe higher rainfall totals, maybe up to 8 inches and maybe 10 inches in some isolated locations north of Myrtle Beach. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the radar lab one more time. And there is our hurricane. Let's see if it's gotten any closer. Okay. So it is now about 25 miles south of Cape Fear. 25 miles south of Cape Fear. It's actually south-southeast of Cape Fear right now. And again, there's probably no observations out there. But some of those reds, I would say in some of those red bands, especially right immediately over the eye here, this stretch here that's about 15 miles from the center, 20 miles from the center, those are probably some hurricane force winds right in there. But the band up here might not be. This has been such a tight storm the entire time. Like, you have to go right around this eye wall to really get those really intense winds. And if you noticed on the east side over here, there's basically nothing. The storm is starting to move faster now, and it's going to leave. All the convection is going to be on the back side and the north side as it moves off to the northeast. So, yeah, if you're within 20 miles of the eye, you're going to get some hurricane force winds. If you're up there 30 miles, you might not. That's That's what we're talking about here for an eye wall wind profile. Let's go back to the hurricane hunters and see if there's any new data. Okay, let's go back here. Okay, here's a buoy. Not a buoy. I'm infatuated with the word buoy. I don't know what it is. This drop zone over here on the east eye wall, if you will, if you want to call it an eye wall. I mean, there's very little convection associated with it, but let's see what this is showing. And this was from 8:15, 7:15, 8:15. 48 knots, 55 miles an hour. And again, see the highlighted knots up there? That's up in the air. That's, again, 963 millibars. That's probably like 1,000 feet up in the air. And actually the wind's going to be higher up there. So let's see if there's any other comments up here that they find interesting from the hurricane hunters. Again, there's not much commentary on drop zone data. It's just basically data. Air temperature dew point. Pressure 29.21 inches. Lowest altitude where the wind was reported. 33.83, 77.34. So let me write that down, and then we're going to put it on the radar. 33.8 and 77.34. So I'm going to put the exact point on the radar where this was reported. So let's go back to the radar. Make sure I have my coordinates showing up here. No, I don't. So let's see. Controls, options, latitude and longitude. Okay. All right. So 33.8, 33.8, and 77.34. 3, 4. Okay, and then 33.8. Yeah, it's right there where my mouse pointer is. On the screen, I don't know if you can see that, but it's right. Now I'll illustrate it for you. Let's see, annotate. Okay, it's about right there is where the 55-mile-an-hour winds were. So that's not really representative. Of course, there could have been a little more banding over here at the time that reading was that drop zone was dropped. Let me try this. Let's go back there to the recon. Zoom in on it even more. <sighs> 23. Ten, 11, 10, 10, 10, 9, 10. Yeah, this is current. 6 miles. Their current plane position is 46 miles to the south-southeast of Wilmington right now. That's where the plane is. You know what'd be so cool is to actually be out there with your camera and film the hurricane hunter flying right over your house or something. Yeah, I think it's only happened a couple of times where storm chasers have actually caught a hurricane hunter flying on their camera. But you know, it's dark outs right now, so you're not gonna see it anyway. But in daylight, you'd have to have it like coming right near the coast, and you have to be in the eye of the hurricane, or maybe not even in the eye. You might catch it flying low or something. That would be really cool. But it's 46. It's out over the water, obviously, so you wouldn't be able to. Even if you're in Cape Fear, you wouldn't see it. But that was from 110. Yeah, 110Z. So that's where we're at right now. And there's nothing even 23. Yeah, it's over an hour old. Current. I'm trying to find some current observations. Yeah, here's one from a few minutes ago. Peak surface wind 95 miles an hour. There's some really good winds on the west side of this eye. But you can see that on the radar with the dark reds, 95 mile an hour winds. Let's go a little bit further west. Surface wind 82.9. Again, they're very tiny streaks of wind. 80 mile an hour winds. Maybe I can zoom even more. Yeah. 80, it's 95 miles an hour. See, that's right. And let me see where that position was. That was at, they don't give the, oh yeah, it is the coordinate. Here it is, 33.4. This is where the wind was measured because the radar is pretty fresh. So this will give us a pretty good idea where the highest winds are, 78.4. Okay, so let's go back to the radar. And this is going to be west of the center. All right, so let me use this, see, 33.4, 33.4. 0.4 right there. 33.4 and 78.4. 78.4. Well, apparently it's right around where my mouse pointer is, somewhere in here. Is where they measured the 95 mile an hour winds. Now, wobble, it was 30 minutes ago. It could have, it could have been in this deep red. Let's just say this: the dark reds here are 95 mile an hour winds. I'm confident in saying that because everything else around the center is showing less than that. And of course, over here where there's no deep convection, we're talking tropical storm force winds. So the hurricane force wind bands are these red bands right around the eye wall, and they're just touching Cape Fear here. So is it going to move on shore? Maybe these bands up in here. But again, the wind bar SFMR readings that are up this far north are from an hour or so ago, so that doesn't reflect these red bands. Trying to keep up real time with an aircraft is really tough, and notice what's happening down here. Let me show you something. And we see this all the time with systems that are ingesting dry air. The hurricane is kind of smiling down here. The dry air is kind of, I like to call it the bat look, which we see a lot on these systems in the northern Gulf. It kind of has a bat like this, like a bat wing, and that's typical when dry air gets in the south side of these things when they're moving, when there's a northerly component. That this is so typical. The dry air works into the system, and it starts to erode further up, and then eventually this becomes void of convection all the way around over here, and then all the convection becomes lopsided on the left side. So this is typical of a dry air situation with a system moving northeast or north. Let's go ahead and put it in motion. And again, moving along pretty good. So we're going to watch the red bands, and the red bands are remaining offshore. They're not touching that landmass. They're just around the eye wall. Those 80 to 95 mile an hour winds are in that red area there, and it's remaining just offshore Cape Fear. And again, assuming that the system is moving northeast, which is this general direction, I don't know. I mean, again, are these hurricane force sustained winds are gonna make it onshore? I think it's safe to say, looking at the position it's at now and looking at the direction of movement, that I think that we're going to see the hurricane force wind field miss the Wilmington area. The question is, are we going to see the hurricane force winds in the Morehead City area or the Outer Banks? That's a real possibility because I could see these red bands moving over the Outer Banks, but by that time, we may be dealing with a 85 or 90 mile an hour hurricane moving at a forward speed of 20 miles an hour, which would negate the winds coming in off the ocean. So it's a really hard call. It really is. But it's dark out there. It's a little unnerving. People are going to have wind gusts. You get those winds, and I don't mean to minimize this. Those tropical storm force winds, 60 miles an hour, will shake your house. It's unnerving at times. I mean, it'll knock down big trees, knock down branches. We've heard about over hundreds of trees in the Myrtle Beach area that have been knocked over by tropical storm force winds. It doesn't take hurricane winds to cause a lot of damage. Trees down, shingles might get blown off on some of the weaker shingles. Gutters sometimes can get blown off houses if they're not fastened correctly. Let's see, what else? Branches, coconuts. Of course, they don't have coconuts up there. By the way, when it looked like Dorian might hit South Florida, I was out there clearing all my coconuts. I must have had, I don't know, 50 coconuts. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I got all these trees out here. I got 4 coconut palms. I got 2 in the front yard, 2 on the side over here. Oh, no, 1 on the side and 2 in the front yard. I got 3 of them. And they were ripe coconuts too. This is really killing me because they were really ripe. They were green and they were full of juice. And I have people always knocking on my door. Can I have your coconuts? Can I have your coconuts? I let them have them because I don't really eat them or drink them or anything like that. But I remember as a kid taking claw hammers and whacking those things open and eating peeling the insides out. I love the coconut from inside and then drinking the juice. It's great. I mean, I ate them all the time when I was a kid. But they were good coconuts. There must have been 30 of them. I mean, amazing amount of coconuts I took down because they become flying projectiles in hurricanes, and you just don't want to deal with that. Let me see if anybody else commented here. Martin Henry is watching. Marcia Parker is watching. Hello, Marcia. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and can it here. It's 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. By the way, these videos are archived on my YouTube channel at Hurricane City. The links are at the top of the navigation bar at Hurricane City for Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and that's where I send all my stuff to. So you can follow me there. I'll send another list out to another email to my list. I sent one this morning. I'll send another one in the morning. We'll know what's happening, if the eye is moving on shore or not in eastern North Carolina. And that'll be it. This is my final night of coverage. I really appreciate all the support. I appreciate all of the donations that came in, especially ever since Dorian has developed. People have been watching these shows. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback. People are donating. It's getting me more in the mood to do this, even though I took a hit in the off season and last year. I still intend on intercepting hurricanes. I'm not stopping doing that. I still intend on doing shows like this when there's a significant threat to land. Um, I still will update the database. I'll make my annual predictions. By the way, I forgot to mention that tonight. So, Nassau, we still don't know whether, and nobody's answered me so far about whether it was a tropical storm condition situation in Nassau. But if Nassau did, they're number 2 on my list. Fernandina Beach, Florida was number 3 on my list. They were hit by tropical storm force winds. Wilmington, North Carolina, well, we're looking at it right now, so this is definitely going to be, at the very least, a brush, if not a hit. Grand Isle was already impacted by Barry, so 4 out of my top 5 so far have been impacted this hurricane season, and we have a long way to go. Briefly, we have Gabrielle out in the East Atlantic moving northwest, no problem, not going to be a threat to land unless Trump takes his Sharpie out and tries to take it toward land or something. It's not going to happen. Fernand moved into Mexico. Invest 94L, it's off the coast of Africa. Some of the models are developing, some don't. The last Euro I saw takes it into the North Atlantic. The GFS takes it into the Caribbean as a weaker system, so we're going to watch. Some of the other models are showing just a low pressure heading toward the Leeward Islands. We don't know what's going to happen. Next week at this time, by next Thursday night, we could be looking at another threat to the Leeward Islands as another potential threat down the road for the United States. It's quite possible. So I'm going to take this opportunity to go and get some of the things that I needed that I didn't have from being threatened by Dorian. Oh, I got to show you one more thing. I'll be right back. With all the talk about, great. Well, maybe I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. So let me go full screen on me here. All right, so all the talk about, okay, this is a headset flashlight. All the talk about donating to the Bahamas. Listen carefully. If you donate one of these, you can get these at Home Depot. You can get them probably any hardware store. Little battery pack on the back of your head. Let me show you what it looks like in the back. It's a little, little square box. There's a couple of AAA batteries in there. And this thing, man, I have used it in Irma. I used it in Hurricane Michael because the power was completely out. I was able to walk around in the hotel in pitch darkness, and everybody's like, "Where do you get that? Well, I want one of those." It was great. I mean, I was able to get around. Just leave it on your head, and your hands are free. You can move wood around or whatever in the aftermath of it's the best thing. And the people in the Bahamas are really going to need these flashlights. So if you want to donate something, I'm telling you right now, this will be the best gift they get over there is this head flashlight because they can do all their work and not have to worry. When it's dark out there, they're tripping over all the debris. They can't find their bedroom. They're not going to get power for a long time there. I mean, this is going to be months before they even have a glimmer of getting power back on that island. So these head flashlights are the best. I don't know what they call. I bought this so many years ago. I don't remember. I think they're probably $30 maybe or something. I would donate one of these to your favorite charity that's sending stuff over to the Bahamas. People cannot get enough of these, and I guarantee you there's not hardly any of them on the island. And when they see this, they're going to be, where did you get that? I want that. And it is the best thing you could have for the aftermath. Even a tropical storm, it can knock your power out. Cat 1, 2, 3, 4, anything can knock your power out, but these flashlights are the best thing. And it's got the red light. It's really bright. I mean, you can't tell by looking at at my face here how bright that is, but it'll light up an entire room. Look, it's got the red light, so if you don't want to wake up people, you can go with the red light. You can have both of them on at the same time. You know, it's just an awesome thing to have as one of these head flashlights. And it just wraps around. It's just belt, like, elastic. It'll fit any size head. Great thing to have. Best, other than the accordion shutters on my house, it's the best investment I ever made. I mean, it's great. Head flashlight. Send them to the Bahamas. If you're a rich person, buy a box of them and send them over to the Bahamas. I am telling you, they will love these things. These are the best things you can send over there. So anyway, the death toll is 20. They say it may go much higher than that. They're still sifting through the debris. I mean, you've seen it. You've seen the aerial shots. It's really bad. So they may find more dead people on the island. Let's just hope they don't. But 20 is enough. And my thoughts go out to the people of the Bahamas. I mean, I just don't know what else to say. I mean, other than donate and help any way you can. Send them these flashlights. All right, I'm going to can it for tonight. Thank you all for watching. This is my last show on Dorian. I'll be back if there's another significant threat this hurricane season, but if it's a Cat 1 or a tropical storm or it's hitting down in the islands and it's only a Cat 1 or something like that, I'm probably not going to cover it. It's only for significant major threats, like Dorian was a major deal. We're going to get 3 or 4 of these every hurricane season. Not necessarily threatening land, but you're going to get powerful hurricanes like this. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, but 4 big stories about every hurricane season. By the way, 4 years in a row, Cat 5. Think about that one too. Category 5 in the Atlantic, 4 years in a row. And the year prior to that was 2015. We had a 155-mile-an-hour hurricane in Joaquin in the Bahamas, right? So, poor Bahamas, man. It seems like Mother Nature saves all its intense 5s for the Bahamas for whatever reason. Remember Matthew? That was a 5. That was down there south of Jamaica. It hit Jamaica as a high-end Cat 4, but I mean, still, it wiped out the west, not the Barahona Peninsula. What do they call that peninsula in Haiti? Oh, it's slipping my mind right now. But that peninsula got wiped out by Hurricane Matthew, and so that was a Cat 5. About 2017. About 18. Irma and Maria, and then Michael last year, and now Dorian, and we may have another Cat 5 when it's all wrapped up this season. So be ready. I'm telling you, we have a long way to go. In fact, if you're in Florida, the height of the season is October. Late September, October is when Florida gets its most hurricanes. So now interestingly, the season starts to tail off for Texas. When you get later in the year, Texas starts getting less and less because most of the systems are recurving. They're heading northeast. Even if they make it in the Gulf, they want to head north as opposed to going west. In fact, the highest time for Texas is August. That's their month. So I'm not saying Texas is in the clear because we had Ike in September. So, I mean, it can happen. But I'm just saying the later we get into September, the less are the chances for Texas. But in the whole Southeast, your game all the way through October, so be ready. All right, Jim Williams, Hurricane City, thank you again for the donations, the support. I'll be back when the next one goes, when the next big threat's out there. And I'm going to be editing the archive. You're going to love it. There's some unbelievable video. I have, if you haven't seen it on my Twitter or Facebook page, the woman screaming for her life at Great Abaco Island while she's on the phone with the radio station. Poor woman, she just sounds like she's being murdered in her house, and then the phone line goes dead. That's just an unbelievable audio clip, and I'm sure there's more of those in my archive. I just haven't found them yet, and I'll edit it all together, and I'll make it available, and I'll let the list know about it and everybody, and it'll be about 45 maybe minutes to an hour long. It'll be well worth the watch. You'll be able to see all the different radars, satellites, news feeds, camera shots, video people sent in, and I'll piece it all together, and you'll really enjoy it. And the people in the Bahamas will get a chance to see it too, because they were in it and they didn't get to see it from an internet point of view. So that's why I do this. All right. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.